Hello, America and Ukraine and Russia. I'm not forgetting you. In other words, I want to say about Germany too. It's the same thing that has the suburbs in Russia and America and Ukraine look almost exactly the same, and they were forced many ways before America's founders were born, where internationally monitored conversations had roles of the torture, extortion, slavery method of every single human being, sickly distinctly too. Northern colonies and southern colonies, and there were more than 13. And of course, they were only capable of being divided against themselves. See, other was communicated about that for ourselves, through ourselves, because our founders didn't have free speech because of the breaching methods rules, with everyone already having been and standing collusions with what entertained as syntax, exceptions, treatments, non-treatments, all as collusion slash S. It's not just at the formal level. It's where or how that was applied as collusion slash S there or right back to ground or the difference of that with syntax appreciation of reality, of science's names, of our own. Everything is about hyper-additional, about the hyper-additional. The identity, which is not the other species' bodies, it is not our own, but it is anyway. And it's its identity of relationship to itself and only increasing value of that at the same time as the hyper-relativity that answers questions this way, being a distinct identity of hyper-invisible but still discernible. It means to check. But we have to appreciate the order of the finite or the smallest finite details. Like how, in other words, in ways that everyone was child abused not to be able to appreciate because the breaching method had stayed entrenched with collusion slash S at all locations slash S that no one wanted, but they had no choice. And that caused other things that no one wanted, but they had no choice. But now, while they're having no choice, they're valuing things they're not. Oh, that's good though. No, everyone's parsing it for the breaching method, leaving itself out too. And no one wanted that anyway. So and nature would demonstrate that. And the breaching method would show them, look, you have to keep other things other themselves blamed. How they do it? Oh, look, value the readings of statutes and precedents haven't been valued. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions wrought this way, using all peak sophistication at countries A through Z, individually, any couplement or grouping that comes from it, entertaining at locations, areas, and states. Science is just not science. You should have fake sides of issues. There's a Justin Kovinskis, and there's a Mark Violet, who will quote, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have collusions with a Joshua Stryker, who's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin. I never had classes with these people. They have been spreading lies with people that put fake things in databases at each campus I went to and next to them, and with people who planted evidences on my street from other areas through time involved. And with the untimely death at Trinity College, even if it was made up, they have rules of planting a fake letter and changing and faking things digitally, tied to it as collusions too, hiding things that had been confirmed and the significance of it on Facebook. Then they take people's Facebook pages. The breach method already showed the identities of the law, that they have to hide the real value of the readings of statutes and precedents regarding the significance of what is typed online or over internet. Joshua Julian, he's one of the names involved with a principal upskirt nature, and ones years ago, first forced, including the ones at the schools involved further with the religious spots and names next to them. Joe DeMoro looks just like this Aaron Mate. I'm not saying he's related to him or even knows him. And there's more than one Joe DeMauro. But a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Joe DeMauro was involved with them through time, putting identity theft, frauds, and slanders, fake things in databases at campuses, fake ties and natures between ties of kids, and with people involved with mayors, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and body dumping spots, increasingly tied to the grammar school kids and younger, and in middle school, and high school, and colleges in connected ways, and universities, inter campuses, inter and intra-city / cities, inter and intra-states. Sickly distinctly too, it is functional. How sickly non-distinctly was is left out by the names of the people of sciences. So, in other words, so there are people involved where they take both sides of issues, and they're increasingly roles forging with all kinds of rackets where they forge and switch names and fabricate transcripts as people that had, sometimes it's their fault, sometimes it's the overt criminal enterprises and other natures of federal criminals and family members of campuses, including fire campuses that run into high live aggression at the same time. Like, for example, at mental health care side of triages with hospitals, interstates, and with families associated with them in the businesses and houses next to them through time, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, all kinds of predicate acts and facts methods. And as people that speak about crimes involved planting transcripts of them, planting predicate acts with facts, a whole bunch of people in the Harper courts, Connecticut's district court, and a whole bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court involved with names at and next to Hartford Hospital through time, foreign and domestic military. See them speaking about the sexual things in the doctors with the little boys and girls, and the military's roles with it, and with what is it called? Where they force people to fight. These are the people involved with keeping us undefended. They're keeping our military criminally foreign influenced / hyper criminally foreign influenced black pupils. These are people that are keeping American history. They're changing the scientific value inside the communications of James Madison and of the founders behind him and his plan that George Washington agreed to help and to use. Instead, they are self-valuing how our founders and then our presidents, our founder, James Madison, before, and founders behind him, plural, including Native Americans, to an extent that agreed, and to the extent that didn't agree, they are the third portion of our founders. The second portion is the Native Americans with the colonists behind, and as James Madison and his plan. We're supposed to refer to them plural as him singular, James Madison. He went with that plan. They went with that plan as him and to get the George Washington to agree to use that plan. And he agreed to use that plan. And that plan was to counter-extort and force the other third of our founders, colonists and Native Americans, forced to be a counter-position called America that is not unabridged at last. And let alone not unabridged at last in appreciating why and how we have rights that are too numerous to have to list them. Connecticut Interbranch has been refusing to identify themselves and forging and switching names, while collusion / S with stacking the branches of government individually grouped and together overt criminal enterprises, private ones, their campuses, their family members, their sources, lawyers on both sides of criminal and civil cases, the people, their sources, the courts at the same time putting the same sequence shifts and self-valuing that. And then showing need to value precedents and statutes being and haven't been read, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, tactically absent of exceptions in exception nature, appreciation proper to liberate, let alone to defend. In other words, this stayed entrenched. The breaching method that assigned roles with slavery that no one wanted. And it's used functionally. how it made exceptions, like money. The money, the breaching method employed in all natures of industries at countries A through Z to be relied on as systems tactical ulterior from that which is hypernative pure. And it re-employed with all differences and therefore names, identities of relativity to the republic for which we stand in the function /S by the campus's Marcia system and how nature's identity holds function / functions, being hyper invisible but still discernible. In other words, people change or fake our words. People value the need for research where there's not a need for research. They value putting fake examples. She gave the guy with the useful idiots. It was an exception, which is not common, where they actually have a reason. Because someone gave them a statistic, and she pointed out that they didn't have research. So these are people who are offensively preventing people from using short words proper, because they're increasingly collusion /S with little tricks where they're putting fake transcripts in databases and acting with people tied to it. Increasingly as collusion /S with a whole bunch of other countries timed collusion /S with their differences too, and with other people's, and with the difference of that, but also with the hyper foreign. For example, even the scientific value of the human fact human nature breaching method that caused slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies, and roles with it sustained, and then America's founders were born. Same breaching method, sickly distinctly, but not sickly non-distinctly too, having been sustained upon Native Americans. And then there are proofs. And then Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Already A through Z from some ancient times, we had been on systems tactical ulterior from the assignments by nature when nature is also further concentrated hyper-positive onto itself. Or it forces itself, or we are shown it makes a negative identity of relationship to itself and its identity of relativity, hyper-relativity, to and as the value of Earth's a special difference of our own, of any of the special difference here, concentrated, hyper-positive to itself. Or it is forced from here. We could ignore its system. Our system's value is forced from here, lethal body, force space nature transfer, where its identity of relativity to positive and negative is already forged. But more and more positive, that is also positive to itself, but per its system, which would have shown us, if honesty properly, would have shown us there's a difference between criminal insidiousness, natures of positive, like peace. In other words, in hyper peace, there's a difference. It's not a discerned thing, but we could discern it just like we could discern the identity that is not other species' bodies is not our own, but it is both anyway. All of them anyway. It is the special difference that which we can discern to an extent, but it comes with that. So it comes simultaneously with its complete identity relationship to itself. And the value of that three ways equally increasing. And that's the appreciation of a nature of equality that's purely scientific. And relative to differences, no, we are the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same exact time. Relative to difference, well, that's the difference we're discerning. That distinct identity, hyper invisible, but still discernible. So, A through Z, literally, we could observe this. We have to appreciate evidences So the nature of debate contains people and styles still changing and faking what people say when they mention these predicate acts against us all at the same exact time, too. Also, relative to how, clearer than day, each age of fact should be nature has other spoken for the short words, where there are convictions by them, regardless if it's theory or not. There are convictions made by the syntax of the names of the people of the sciences based on the relativity of understanding. How our founders did not have free speech, and they had to declassify this about the breaching method that was measuring and maintaining everyone. How everyone with collusions that was sensing for had no means but to sense for the breaching method. You know, any body with short words proper, even if that body would be a majority of people, even if it would be everybody. So regarding Nazi, right fluent through World War I and World War II, psychiatry had roles with the courts. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and used remotely only concentrated collusion /s with the use of location /s part that no one wanted collusion with. And then hyper additionally too, where everyone's its identity as the identity of all space /existence. Nobody wanted these identity grounds, identity relation to itself and value of that appreciation. Systems abridged. Tactical military from that which is how it shows us where evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere come all at once, everywhere at once, real, always. It shows us to understand the difference between. It shows us how to when we could discern things like criminal foreign influences, because it wants us to make hyper positives out of them. It wants us to appreciate there is another name involved than just A through Z. But to discern it, you have to begin with the discernment of the scientific value of a human fact should be nature breaching method. That is one of the sum values. That is one of the things true always. That the sum value, the summary value of all those laws were entrenched. That where how we could where it's relative where we're looking at that where they had time collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists at the same time. Even if the witch trials are made up, we're looking at what's simultaneous when we want to deal with reality in serious subjects. And when you want to be led by the hyper invisible but still discernible, you don't leave out the smallest finite detail. And you appreciate how and why it wants us to ask questions and contemplate and answer and evaluate the validity of answers. So there's a Joe DeMoro who completely on their own, the interbranch and the intelligence and the difference of that. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. John DeMoro, too. John DeMoro is involved with them, with a whole bunch of different countries and people on Valley Crest who all sought me out, too, as strangers to make fake exceptions to pretend other. They have roles of identity, theft, fraud, slanders with people named Harris and a Kevin Harris involved with a Ray Reynolds and his educators and people involved with medical community putting fake transcripts in databases, filming fake things at crime scenes in all locations and changing what's actually recorded and just putting fake audio and video transcripts to pretend things were recorded at locations filmed 24/7, for example. So I'm not saying they know each other, but a Joe DeMoro recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed He has roles, some ways criminally foreign influenced, some ways his sources into branch were criminally foreign influenced, with sequence shifts and roles with predicate acts with facts with him, and falsified police reports and identity theft, frauds, and slanders, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones that also adults and kids recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he was involved with, as the ones involved with first forced years apart, first forced child abusers, leaders of kids, and people they pretended they arrested with charges and used all kinds of weapons, pretending that arrests are legitimate. Even when they are for legitimate things, they're faking, changing, and hiding foreign names involved. And even when it's also often through other layers of uses of others' names. Incapable of having the quality of fact, treatment, nature, let alone names uses, let alone both simultaneously, with any instances, treatments, with any questions, treatments. American history is about appreciating what witch trials are about, and the slavery and sickly, distinctly northern colonies, southern colonies, and way worse than just internationally monitored conversations and laws by syntax and nature of things and people. Collusion / S to an extent, everyone against everyone. Otherwise, that body would be discerned through their own, even if it was a majority of people. That body, even if it's everyone. In other words, so a whole bunch of people with the United States military and foreign militaries before the World Trade Center attack, like families with UConn, with psychiatry, they have rules, all kinds of medicines, crimes. The same ones are ones with the other natures of drugs and unmarked police forms, and their roles with all these different countries, like with Russia, Ukraine, Korea, the same ones involved with this DeMoro family. It looks like if he had a kid, it would look just like Aaron Mate. And he confessed the name and recorded the name Aaron involved with him. Also with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. I never had a word of conversation with him verbally. He's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Involved with Thaddeus Grabowski outside of Fox Connecticut News with a whole bunch of police intercities, like one's name and tied to one's name, Mendez and Domain, like Alison Mulcahy, and in other words, and people increasingly people associate with the former mayor Gold and other mayors involved with the World Trade Center attack and all the countries involved and the names. They all have been and are entertained self-value, even when not, too. The difference of that, like roles with this. Saudi Arabia didn't want roles with psychiatry and the intelligence community but before the World Trade Center attack, as the ones from Connecticut intercities involved with the World Trade Center and spots and names next to it, like Scalora, a Claudia Scalora, and a Subby Scalora, and I don't know how many other Scaloras. But Weathersfield Police, too, they just put the name Scalora, and they didn't say who, but he's involved with them with predicate acts on my street. And the police departments with the same house / S, they use crime methods with the other police forms, still. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Also, Thaddeus Grabowski is one of his co-defendants. Also, neighbors of a Dominic Lepriata are involved also with Finesse family members of some of the judges involved with some of the locations that were simultaneously exploiting. The difference of it there. Part of the way they're exploited, where they use identity and title to mean what it doesn't. Where they have readings of statutes, offensively read, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. And while being and having been used remotely with that. Lawyers of Weathersfield Police and a former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act, Robert Chevrolet. Also people in use of location / S next to him were also involved with these names all along Route 3. are people who, with their educators, who put predicate acts in databases with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, all kinds of behavior racketeering and motivation screening. In other words, so this is to help the people of Ukraine and to help the people of Germany at the same time. You have to understand how every individual, including if it's a leader of a country, they have what is fluent through our countries that's under the guise of being the difference of the overt criminal enterprise, the private ones, the interbranch, the highest title, the lowest title, that difference still used. The motivations narratives like by victims advocates. The interbranch have roles with the different types of clubs and people and motivations for their roles with that. Planting evidence is increasingly at all location/S, which state collusions right back to all location/S. And this breaching method showed and shows and maintains by showing that everyone has to keep appreciation of the difference of that. Appreciating criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought ways. They can't appreciate that and afford to be, let alone to project. Short words, with convictions proper, with theory, let alone with science, as straight convictions for science. /S. Science is shared and identity. It must be led by the hyper invisible but still discernible. There are all kinds of collusion /S with all kinds of predicate acts with facts, methods, and means and methods of hiding, having had roles with that as collusion /S. That also was effective use /S of the difference of it there, worst, or their collusion at the crime scenes with the killers. All natures of crimes and criminals and crime scenes. The interbranch had collusion with all kinds of people who recorded themselves pretending and believing with delusions because they had exceptions you're talking about. Like, for example, that prison should be really bad because some people don't want to go back there. They're keeping it, they have to hide live aggressions. They have to hide what's actually recorded and self-value roles of predicate act, wire crime methods, digital crime methods. Evidence is racketeering collusion /S. Roles with denials of that used remotely. Individually grouped and together the names of the people of the science. Forgiveness is because we're supposed to, with our founders and what nature shows us to do. In other words, is that there were collusions that were forced. That's what witch trials in the founding locations that had roles with slavery were about. That's supposed to blame on other things other than themselves. And you're supposed to allow people to be honest about the extortion of George Washington, which was also partially by James Madison and the founders behind him, which is also Native Americans, which is still the resistance hold as conduit to our perception, our means to perceive this breaching method use of different /S. And relative to the where no one allows science honest and proper for the suburbs, let alone for the cities, let alone that and Native American rights simultaneously, as nature shows us to appreciate American history properly. Nature shows that modern histories were forged self-valuing. Abuses of themselves, abuses of the names A through Z, wherein how you had replaced what your founders had communicated to you because they didn't have free speech and they had to pretend other to an extent, otherwise be discerned. That's where we have to appreciate the breaching method they communicated about, and that is observably having been entrenched and being entrenched. So Useful Idiots has roles with Mark Violet and Justin Kubinskis with people next to Hartford Hospital, with the Tomorrow's Market through time. I don't know if they're still there, but where they moved to too. There's a Paul Demaro over the phone will record, confess, demonstrate, confirm collusion /S with John Demaro and my fifth grade teacher with people with the F.B.I. people at Central Connecticut State University in DeBrinton, Connecticut, involved with child abusers intercities at campuses proven first forest. And more people involved also with them with abuse /S, other ways, various ways with organized crimes not legitimately, where they have the legitimate roles with organized crimes against the daughter of a Mr. Murphy who was a principal when I was at the school, the principal upskirt nature. And also people associated with the former Governor Malloy are presenting fake transcripts into databases to governors and to presidents. Increasingly, people with the name Leahy are some of the doctors, and ones with the name Lombardo are involved with all kinds of identity theft frauds. Also with people with the name Mayano next to Hartford Hospital, and involved with people all at 3 spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike. Increasingly involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of different countries and interbranch, individually grouped and together, involved with predicate acts with facts there. Identity theft, fraud, slanders. People that time where I was going to be. And some just tricked me to be near them. And involved with, the ones with predicate acts on my street from other areas. The ones that brought up the principal upskirt nature's campus to me, with much worse child abuses and other natures of organized crimes, and his roles with the untimely deaths with them intercities connected, and ones in the past too, involved with the use of location /S, distinct but also non-distinct, insidious too. Same people involved with years apart home break-ins and wire crimes with the police and other police forms who had time collusion /S with that. In other words, same ones involved with the news, WFSB, Connecticut's Channel 3 News, attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others. They're involved all along Route 3 with a whole bunch of names on off the state judicial branch offices, which is one of the conjunctions to it. And the corners of people involved with the corners of Elm Streets and Rocky Hill and Weathersfield. Recorded, sought me out, recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed. They have roles of people on my area with the intelligence families, ones that don't even live in the state, and they came back too. Time collusion /S with increasingly all sides of Central Connecticut State University, and has roles with names added too, with interbranch, individually grouped and together, used remotely, which is one of the things we're going to observe that the breaching method has what was observing through the years. This is since before our founders were born and was entrenched through their lifetimes. Other has been communicated about how the states unfolded. Then they communicated for us to understand about this. Vaccines. That's why how no one's appreciating how the rest of the Native Americans had to be counter extorted. Don't blame our founders for the torture, extortion, and slavery method. We're all fact, human nature, enslaved, therefore physically. This changes all natures of wealth. We can do things better than free. The means for it, stack it for ourselves as a human species body, A through Z. But we're going to do it, and it's not going to mess up. We have to be doing it, understanding but there's more than A through Z species bodies. And then additionally, there's a breaching method too that has more understanding than everyone. Everyone wants to have debate about experts and research, but they can't appreciate the hyper evidential. There are wire crime acts and methods recorded. These aren't things you put on paper. These are methods. These are people that are putting fake paper to keep roles with the people out here who want to speak about business and pretend they don't understand or they couldn't fathom that they could know, or it could be that people put fake things in databases. In other words, people lie about their motivations when they jump in other people's conversations. When they mention World Trade Center predicate acts too. Search for truths to change to lies. The value haven't been lied. The value as rules increasingly Robert Rodriguez is one of the ones who brought up the name Scalora, and so his roles with untimely deaths and with people with some child abusers involved with the news and with people with the campuses, intercities, and all along Route 3 and next to religious spots. Are people involved with identity theft, fraud, thinking behavior racketeering too? Ugh. Please get me off the fake conversations with the Channel 3 News. These are people with the sources of WTNH at corners of streets along Route 175. Joe DeMoro recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A whole bunch of people tied to former director of the F.B.I, Robert Luskin, involved with names on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, with wire and mail crimes, identity thefts, frauds, putting fake transcripts at Hartford Hospital, and with the names next to them in through the mail. And they won't communicate with me. Judge Napolitano, please get them on paper, one name in sequence. Especially if this guy is related to a Joe DeMoro. Because who is one of the brothers of, and they have other cousins and other people with their name too involved, intercampuses. In other words, intercities, and intra-cities, and interstates, and international. The same ones that are recorded international used remotely too, like these people with the narratives regarding their value as psychiatry and their roles with the military, foreign and domestic, and the state corrections offices. Ones with the name DeMoro and Collusion and Lance Cuddy are increasingly people from my grammar school, kids and adults, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed through time. They have roles with all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, kids that don't even go to the same schools, and kids that aren't even in the same classes, putting fake things in databases, and then hiding live progressions by jumping into Facebook where they have roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents, and the difference of them, their criminally foreign influence. Facebook too. Facebook leadership has roles with their ad placements too. The same thing with a Trantola and Trantola. They're leaking their roles with Connecticut's news locations, and their roles with the branches of government individually grouped in together, involve all kinds of scams with them. Also private tied to them, overt criminal enterprises, private ones. And they pretend people make conspiracy theories. They have the audacity to do that, as their roles recorded with various natures of offenders, of kids, elderly, veterans. The same people that will jump up and get into people's conversations, want to go to the debate, same stupid debate with the criminally foreign influence uses of the military, clearer than day, black pupils. They have all kinds of fake transcripts at Hartford Hospital, roles with the World Trade Center attack, with foreign and domestic military, as their roles with even the sexual spots next to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. They have collusion /S with a whole bunch of families from Wethersfield involved with these conversations that with their planting evidences and then making things go before courts and pretend it's debatable, where it's being and has been used remotely, where names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the court's names. They're attached to fake natures of ties, collusion /S, but also overt criminal enterprises and private ones, even when they're not in the case, and a whole bunch of different countries with the same name /S involved. They won't get on paper. So these are not legitimate roles they have with other nations, our countries. They have all kinds of collusions together and all kinds of delusions, and they call attacks upon themselves, and they pretend that other people did because they just do it for you. In other words, by timing where you're going to be, and make someone film someone saying a racial comment. In other words, I knew they were doing that. In other words, this breaching method showed that the people of the law that already had self-value roles blaming what the breaching method caused on other things, others, and or on themselves, even on our founders. Exactly the way the breaching method set them up to. You guys are not honest. So the military has roles, and you guys are forcing me to make a map of the ground because you're going to pretend you don't understand me, and you're not getting it on paper. You're forging names and switching names. You're not following mandated law on a mass scale. In other words, these people cannot defend their worth where it is worth jobs. You guys have collusion /S with that. Our founders told us not to leave out how the breaching method had roles with its assignments with the economies. And before that, with the ground, tactically denatured, all value nature systems and natures of differences employed by the breaching method, hyper criminally foreign influence, had complete possession over the countries already that were a part of those internationally monitored conversations that were roles with all kinds of crazy things and methods and roles sustained. Otherwise, everyone would sense for it. You know, all we have to do is free speech. So these people with fake sides of issues, the same ones with the sexual offenders and the counters to it, the same people who go, oh, that's the KKK theme, that's that. They know that, in other words, they have the KKK black theme, Confederate flag theme, planting evidences with this O'Brien family, with lobbyists, with the right to lie, where they don't have the right to lie. They're putting fake identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of different countries at the same time. These are increasingly people with Korea, too, with psychiatry. Let's get them out of these. They're just concentrated, though. The collusion /S was right back at location /S, even though they have concentrated collusion /S there, too. All natures of programs. You know, the titles fail. Oh, hell, who disbelieves? In other words, right through world wars, psychiatry had all kinds of roles. Other was recorded. And is appreciated. We better appreciate it because you're going to learn how to appreciate the difference between our founders and our presidents. And you're going to learn how to appreciate how and why George Washington told us to be honest, and about how and why he was extorted and counter extorted. Black people's peers.